Do you like to swim? Some people obviously like to more than others. Some don't like it at all. Some do it quite often. Well, wherever you fall, though, on that line, I'm guessing you're not swimming now, right? Leave a comment if you were swimming when you watch this video. I'd be interested to know. Well, then think about it. Do fish like to swim? Never thought about that? Yeah, I think about strange things. Do fish even realize they're swimming? What are fish capable of realizing? Everything they do is done while they are swimming. So for a fish, they just are swimmers. It's what they do. It's who they are. Well, I make that comparison, that contrast, for us to ask the question, is my Christian life more like swimming for a person or for a fish? Is it more like something that's separate from the rest of my life, or is it just who I am and everything I do is part of that Christian life? We're looking at Jesus feeding the 5,000, and I said we're trying to really dig deeper, see what are the underlying lessons. I believe there's two here, and we're focusing on this section of verses, Mark chapter 6, verse 35 and following, where it says, "When it grew late, Jesus' disciples came to him and said, 'This is a desolate place, and the hour is now late. Send the people away to go into the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat.' But Jesus answered them, 'You give them something to eat.' And they said to him, 'Shall we go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give it to them to eat?' Well, we know that Jesus, they had them look for the food that was there, and they found the 5 loaves and 2 fish, and he miraculously multiplied them, fed the 5,000 men and all the women and children that were there, more left over than when they started. But we're asking this question, why? What's the underlying theme? What are some main lessons we can get from this? And the first one we saw last time is where God guides, he provides. And that actually provides the context for the second lesson. Because I pointed out, they'd just seen God provide on this mission that Jesus sent them out 2 by 2 to go and preach and heal and cast out demons. And this comes immediately. They return to Jesus and tell him how things went. And then it says, Jesus says, you need some rest. They go away to this desolate place, ends up teaching the people for a long time. But they had seen God provide, because you remember, Jesus had instructed them, you can take a staff and your sandals and 1 tunic, but nothing extra. No money, no food, no bag, no second tunic to sleep under. Trust that God will provide. And they'd seen that. God had provided during that whole mission, however long it lasted. Prior to this, they'd seen all kinds of miracles. They'd seen Jesus heal people. They'd seen him calm a storm, which really, freaked them out a little bit. He just spoke and it calmed. 3 of them had seen him raise someone from the dead. So you have to take all that and have it in mind when Jesus says, you give them something to eat. And their immediate response is, should we go and buy them something to eat? Should we spend 200 days' wages? Is how much they just estimated it might cost, on the very low end. Should we go and do that? No, Jesus wanted them to realize what they should have realized before from the mission they were out on, other things they'd seen, and he wanted them to trust where God guides, he will provide. He's guided us to this situation with these people. There's a need. Where God guides, he'll provide, but they didn't. And so that raises a question. Why? Why didn't they trust some way of God to provide for this? And, I got to think it wouldn't even necessarily have to be multiplying food, the money, maybe some miraculous multiplication of money, finding money. Later, Peter finds the coin in the fish. Jesus tells him to go out, catch a fish, and he pays the temple tax. So there's all kinds of ways, but their mind focuses only on just the naturalistic, physical, man-made in terms of what I'm capable of accomplishing on my own. Where's the money for this? You want us to buy it. For some reason, then, this was different. They'd seen God do miracles and provide in all those ways. They had just seen him provide for them what they needed every time, every day on this mission. Here they are, and for some reason, it just, the blinders are on. This is outside of the parameter of that. And so to me, it made me think, just like swimming, we can view Christian life as separate from the rest of our life. The very extreme of that, of course, would be, I'm a Christian. My Christian life consists of whenever I'm at church. Sunday morning, maybe Sunday night, midweek, whatever, church activity. There I'm a Christian. The rest of the time I act totally different standards, morality. This is business, type of thing. Hopefully we know that's wrong. But just begin to think about this a little bit. I talk so much about faith being just integral to our Christian lives. More foundational really than even obedience, in terms of our obedience comes as we trust God that His will, His ways are best. But do we always see every part of our Christian life as, encompassing faith? Being lived, being walked by faith, not by sight. I think sometimes we separate that. It seems like they separated here. We can trust God for this, but now we're in this situation, we can't. I even think one problem is we've come to view our Christian life as different separate areas. And, there was some benefit to this idea of, viewing the 5 purposes of our Christian life of, worship and fellowship and discipleship, ministry, and evangelism. It's important to know, okay, our Christian life should include those. I think the problem is when we divide it up. Well, this is this one, and this is this one, and what's this one, and how does it fit together? The second lesson here that Jesus wanted the disciples to get, and us as well, I believe, is that our Christian life is one organic whole. Our Christian life is our life. Our Christian life is this relationship I often talk about with God. That encompasses everything. Now, are there things that, I spend time in church and time out? Of course. Are there things that are more focused on worship or witness? Yeah, but you look at those even. They all intermesh. They all overlap. And I think sometimes, again, if we think of witnessing, well, that's when I sit down and I talk to someone specifically and I've got to get them to, okay, here's who Jesus is and He died, instead of just being a witness. And those details are going to come up, but my whole time with them is part of being a witness. We sometimes think of evangelism and then discipleship. Well, what if we think about leading people into their understanding of who Jesus is? Jesus said to the one person, I can see you're not far from the kingdom. You've been moving closer and closer. You're not there yet. But discipleship preceded evangelism. For us, my life, discipleship. Well, that's when I'm in a class, when I'm doing this. What can I learn from the situations around me? I thought about this, and sometimes I think, well, I'm so busy. This is one more thing, Steve, to try to figure out. And this, what if we viewed life this way? Taking our kids to soccer practice, the classic example, wouldn't be, this wouldn't be something I need to add to that. I would view that as taking the kids to soccer practice. Well, I can be a witness there to what God's done in my life. It can be a time of discipleship for a person I'm talking to and for me as I learn a lesson in a situation, as I apply patience or whatever it is I need to. It can be a time certainly of ministry as I see a person has a need and how can I meet it. Fellowship as I talk with someone about something deeper if there's another Christian there. Certainly worship to God in the midst of everything of God. And just everything I do, if I look at it, truly shows your worth and I can declare it. If we would view that life that way, how much would it change our view, change our perspective? And then as we go back to where God guides, He provides, again, He's guiding us all throughout our life, this one organic whole relationship with Him. Trust that He'll provide what I need all the time. Again, I think this is a foundational lesson. It was for the disciples. It is for us. It's what we build other elements of our Christian life on. So it's important for us to get this, which means it's important for other people to get this. I always encourage you, share the videos. I certainly appreciate that. But when you share them, be sure to tag 2 people you think would appreciate this, be encouraged by it, and then check out the action steps as well. Thanks.